What's up, guys? MC Stu here, and today we're going to take a look at the Tier 6 Raptor that was given out along with the Elite Starter Pack with the codes from the last video that I had put out. A couple different websites had partnered with Star Trek Online to give out some goodies for free. So I hope everyone took advantage of that. When I checked as of making this video, which was on the 4th, there were still some keys available. So if you haven't already got one, definitely take a look at that last video. I'll go ahead and link it here and make sure you get yourself a code. So what we're going to do is take a look at the ship and a cannon build that I put together on it here for you guys. So far, I've been very impressed with this ship. It's a good looking ship. There's quite a few number of skins for it. I went with the darker, looks almost black. There's not a lot of choices in terms of kit bashing or really any at all. So this is the shape of the ship and there's no other variations of it. But there are quite a few different skins you can pick from that look good, from your classic green looking Klingon skins to some of these darker ones. So decent looking ship, pilots very well. It's got a very good layout on it. Overall, very happy. I certainly can't complain, not that I would since it was free, but it's definitely a ship I'll be using a lot, especially on my free-to-play account here. This was a really nice add to the roster. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So I went ahead and used the reputation system on this character to claim one of the fleet modules that you can get here for 100 fleet marks in that particular one. So this is the first one I've used here. I think I got it on my Discovery one. I only have 2 that are up to Tier 6. So I went ahead and unlocked the fleet version of it. And then I also went ahead and used an X upgrade, which they had given us a free one, a week or so back. This adds to this, the fleet adds an extra console for tactical, and the X upgrade obviously adds a universal one. So in total here, we're looking at, 12 different console slots. It's a 5-2 layout with an experimental weapon. So let's just take a quick look at the build here. You'll notice, just like most builds, and this is why I don't generally do specific ship builds, because I find that most of my builds are very, very similar with some nuanced differences. So I still need to complete some of the series on, cannon, dual beam bank we've covered, just beam builds we've covered. So we need to take a look at some more of the cannon builds, which this will serve as, and you'll find any other ones coming after this are going to be very similar. So I do have the DPRM on this character, but I opted to use the console that came with the ship. That's what I would have here, or the M6 computer. But with this ship, the console it comes with is actually pretty nice, especially if we were going to do a dual beam bank overload build. But I went ahead and decided to keep it on. So let's just go ahead and take a look through this here. So the first item we have is going to be the Terran Task Force dual heavy cannons. This comes from the Terran rep. This is, as I stated before, one of the best weapons in the game. There's 4 flavors essentially of this particular kind of weapon. So there's phaser, there is disruptor, and then there's also beam arrays of both of those flavors as well. And so if you're doing any disruptor or any phaser build, you're going to want one of these on there, depending on if it's a cannon or if it's a beam build. Even on a dual beam bank build, I'll still use that. It's that good on the front of it. Next, we have the Disruptor Quad Cannon. This comes from the, I think you pronounce it, Ning Tao Bird of Prey. This is obtainable from the ship vendor for dilithium. It's 75,000 dil for this ship, and you can pull this quad cannon off of it and use it on any of your other builds. It's an excellent weapon. As you'll see in the parse, it did very, very good, and it's easily obtainable. There's a phaser version of this as well that comes from the Tier 3 Defiant variant that's out there. Nice visual. It's got a really cool sound, especially the phaser ones I like a lot. But for the Disruptor build, this is definitely a must-have, and it's earnable in game for the 75k. I believe, depending on how your fleet buffs are going and what they've accomplished, that could be discounted as well, a little bit cheaper. Next, we have 2 of the Alachi dual crescent cannons. These were given away a while back. You could use any disruptor cannons here. I would recommend dual heavies is what I would go with. I opened these a while back when I was kind of back and forth between if I was liking the dual or dual heavies better, and the duals fire faster. So 2 seconds dual heavies fire at 3 seconds, and so the DPS tends to end up being about the same. The big difference though is that the dual heavies have a baked in extra modifier essentially. So you'll see right under on the dual heavies where it says the 45-degree arc, it'll say plus 5% critical severity. I would definitely recommend going that route. These particular ones are what I had, so I used them. Using any other, flavor of Disruptor is not going to make or break this build or change it in any kind of major way. This is just what I had, so I used 2 of them up front here. Adds on pretty much every single one of my builds. We have the Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo, along with the Lorca console down here for the 2-piece. And we'll take a look at that console when we get down to the bottom, and the 2-piece at that point. We're using pretty much my standard go-to space set, especially on my free-to-play with the Colony Deflector. We're using the competitive engine, along with a crafted deuterium stabilized warp core, and I'm using this for the negative 15% weapons cost. There are quite a few other good options. There's some Fleet Spire ones. The Terran Task Force will probably be on here once I have that rep up high enough, but for the time being, this gets it more than done and will still be in the rotation even once I have some of these other cores. Lastly, we're using the Tilly Shield, and this is here for the extra 11.5% damage to shields, to enemy shields. On the rear, we have the Alachi Crescent turret, and again, this is another one where it's just what I have. There are some rep items that probably this will get replaced with at some point. One of the heavy turrets most likely will go in here, but again, not going to make or break the build. Certainly squeeze out a little more DPS maybe with a better one. Lastly, for weapons in the back, we are using the House Martog Disruptor. They call this a 360-degree energy weapon. It's basically an omni-directional weapon, and I'm using this in conjunction with the console, and we'll take a look at that 2-piece in the console in just a moment. This item comes from the mission, and it always slips my mind. Let's take a look here. The nice thing, too, is that you can get the weapon and the console on one playthrough. The console comes as a baked-in drop, a baked-in reward, and then you can select between some other items, one of them which is the omnidirectional. So it's in future-proof, and that is brush fire here. So you'll see, if we scroll down, console just comes with it, and then you can pick that omnidirectional weapon. So nice, you can get both of those items with just one playthrough of that mission. Next, we are using the Soliton Wave Impeller. This is probably the best experimental weapon in the game. This comes from the Tier 6 Rising Corvette, and that was, I believe, 2 years ago event. If you don't have that, it is available in the Muds Market, and it's outrageous. So if I didn't have it from the event, I would not be purchasing it because of how much it costs. But it definitely is very, very good. If you don't have this, use what came on the ship. There's also a couple through the rep system. If you look through that, I don't have access to them. So you'll have to look through what ships do you have that maybe came with one special, or you may just need to go ahead and use the one that came with the ship. Just make sure that you upgrade it. For devices, we are using the Deuterium Surplus. This is for the extra speed boost. We're using batteries, the energy amplifiers for the plus 20% bonus weapons damage. And then lastly, I'm using the Kobayashi Maru for the extra buffs that it gives out. You could go with the Subspace Field Modulator. This is a mission drop as well instead, and I'm kind of back and forth, so I like this for the survivability, but if you didn't do the event and you don't have that, definitely just go pick up this here and use it in its place. I might even just switch it out because I really do like this device to have in there for the oh crap moments where you need a little bit more resistance rating. All right, so let's take a look at the console that comes from Brushfire. This is part of this 2-piece Martog set here. And what we get from this great survivability console, so we're getting 11.9 maximum hit points, which is helping Tyler's duality, which is a rep trait, giving us more critical chance. This is giving us additional shield power, which is helping our Tilly shield. The more shield power you have, the more shield damage you're going to cause to enemies. So right now I'm sitting at 11.5, and that's with my shield power all the way down. So that bonus is helping, you know, me get a little bit of that back. This is just how I like to run my power settings. I like everything I can into weapons, and then all the rest into movement. So any little extra we get here helps proc that shield a little bit. That's not primarily the reason I'm running this console, but it's a nice little extra. We're getting some extra engine power, which is another really nice boost, and then we're getting 8.9 maximum shield capacity. Whatever, you guys know my stance on that. Shields aren't a real big priority for me. And then lastly, we're getting 19% flight turn rate, which is wonderful. The two-piece on this is really why this is here on this particular build. I do run this on like more tanky builds, especially on my free-to-play. It's an excellent console for that, but the reason it is on this build is for the two-piece. And having both of those items is going to give us plus 2.5 critical chance, which is a very nice boost, and a little bit of accuracy, which with cannon scatter volley build, that's not a bad thing to have either. Next up, we have the 3 go-to Lowby consoles. I have a whole video on this. Definitely check that out if you're not familiar. But these are all here essentially for the critical chance and severity. So we'll just briefly go over these. We have the Baronero infused circuitry. This is here for the plus 26.2% critical severity, huge boost. We have the Swarmer processor, and this is here for the huge almost 4% critical chance. We also get some accuracy with this as well, which again is not bad. And then we have the tachyokinetic converter, and this is here for the critical chance and critical severity. These are the go-to Lowby consoles. These should be the first things that you're buying with Lowby. There are some good ships with some good traits, and I have a video on that as well. But if you don't have any of this stuff, it doesn't matter what ship you got. I mean, you can make any ship in the game good. I mean, this ship that they gave us for free is an old ship. There's nothing super special about it, and you'll see it performs excellent if you have the right gear on it. And this stuff is all attainable in game. It does take some time. You have to play through the events. There's one obviously running right now, but I have not spent $1 on this entire account. And this particular tune, which is just a year old now, is able to do over 200K on a good run. And that's a pug run, by the way. Next is the console that comes with the ship. So I decided to go ahead and run this. So this is a nice little clicky. It's got a pretty fast recharge time at 1 minute. So in like an ISA, you're able to use this 2 to 3 times, depending on how quickly the run goes. Other TFOs, you'll be able to use this even more. And what this is going to do is it's going to make us immune from weapon, engine, and auxiliary offline. So it protects us from that, which actually works nicely with the intel ability that we're using here, override subsystem safeties, because this has a chance of knocking a subsystem offline for 5 seconds, which, depending on which subsystem that can be in the middle of a fight, can be extremely annoying. So if you time these things together properly, they can work in conjunction very nicely. Next, we have it repairs any disabled weapons or engines, so basically fixes any subsystems that are offline. And then it gives us some really nice boosts here. So we have plus 65.2 weapons power settings for 33 seconds. It does the same thing for engines and auxiliary power. On top of that, it raises the maximum cap of those systems by plus 10. So you'll see if you look at, like, for instance, my weapon settings down here, I always have a hard, if you know how to make this come up every time, I always have to like hover around. I finally find like the sweet spot. So, excuse me. This has a setting of the max is what it says is 100, but with the way the skill tree is and everything, I'm at 125. So it's maxed. There's probably some overflow in there already as well. So if I get that 60% extra, along with that plus 10, this is going to set at 135, and then all that extra that you're not using actually sits in a pool. So even as you start to use weapons power, that top number 135 isn't going to go down because you have so much extra left over in that pool. It's not going to go up any higher than that 135 while that's running. Once that's done running, it'll go back down to the 125. And again, you can use this console pretty often with a minute cooldown, which is really, really nice. Okay, next are science consoles. They're not science at all. Obviously, they are going to be, again, crit chance and crit severity. These come from the rep system. So this is from the Omega rep, and this is here for the critical chance and critical severity, as well as the +5 weapons power settings, which is, again, very nice. This build, if this was a beam overload disruptor build, there's not one thing that I would change on it. It literally would just have beam overload and another Omni in the back, a crafted one, so you could use 2, and some different bridge officer abilities. Anyways, not to get off on a tangent about what else this could do, but again, if you've watched my videos, you're finding that there's a theme here, right? A lot of this stuff tends to be somewhat the same. Maybe that's somewhat boring, and it could get that way. I understand that and that potential criticism. If you were to look on my paid account where I have a lot more ships and a lot more gear and a lot more traits, you'll see a lot more variety, you know, when you start looking at science and drain builds and torp boats, and this starts to change. But, you know, if you're looking at putting out DPS, cannons, beams, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you want to build that crit chance, that crit severity, boost those weapons as much as you can, have some good resistance rating, and go in there and smash things. Next item is from the Romulan rep, and this is the 0 point module. This is our 0 point energy conduit, and this is giving us additional power to all of our subsystems, which is great. It's giving us some drain, which isn't a big deal. Main reason this is here is for the plus 2.4% critical chance. Excellent, excellent console. Next, we have the Lorcator, and this is here for the huge critical severity, or critical chance, I'm sorry, the weapon's power cost, and the Starship shield penetration. Everything on this console is excellent. I use this on pretty much everything out there. Let's take a look at the 2-piece that I'm using this along with the torpedo. So the 2-piece is going to give us a stacking critical severity boost. So for every crit hit that we have, we're going to get +1 critical severity buff for 20 seconds. That timer restarts every time you get another one of these stacks, and it stacks up to 25 times. Meaning after you get 25 critical hits, you would have built up an extra 25% critical severity. And it'll continue to run as long as you're getting these critical hits. Excellent, excellent console, excellent 2-piece set. Lastly, we are using 1 vulnerability exploiter for the critical severity and 3 vulnerability locators for the critical chance. And let's just take a look at where our stats are. So we're sitting at a hull of 101, which is pretty crazy on a smaller ship like this. We are looking at, for transfer rate, where we at 208, not bad at all either. Regen on the whole could be a little better, but it's not terrible. Again, this isn't a tank. We're going to focus on avoiding damage, and there's a couple ways to go about doing that. Our resistances aren't wonderful. I mean, this build really is going to depend on avoiding damage, dropping threat, and being able to kill things before it can kill you. So if you're not careful, if I didn't have, you know, some of these consoles here, I would be replacing a couple of them more with survivability things, most likely stuff that's going to give me a little bit more resistance to try and get me in the 30s, and we would do much, much better. Or we would mix in, say, 2 intel teams and fresh off of R&R, the personal space trait, where you can basically keep this up and running almost full time, along with your Photonic Officer for the recharge. So, and that would keep you in a quasi cloak for the majority of your runs, and you wouldn't have to worry as much about this area here. Critical chance sitting still is 58%, which is massive. Super proud of that there. Again, this is a Romulan tune, so I do have SROs for everything, so that gives me a pretty decent advantage. Then we're sitting at 212% on the critical severity, which again, with the 2-piece from this guy here, as soon as we get 25 critical hits, which is going to happen very quickly, that's another 25% stacked right on top of that. We have a flight speed of 53, and I'm sure our turn rate is pretty high, although we can't tell while I'm not moving, and I don't want to go flying across the map at the moment. Skill tree is my standard go-to for free-to-play beginning. At some point, I'll probably update this here, but I do like to keep a little bit in the hull plating and here for kinetic damage, physical damage. That tends to be kind of the weak spot, I think, for most. Again, if you're still kind of building some of this up, I would also take the hull plating and maybe drop the warp core potential. for it. Otherwise, we're going Tactical Ultimate for all the extra boosts that we get here with our Focus Fury. Clickable. Definitely want to do that if you're going DPS. And we are running for Specialization, Strategist, Intel. Pretty standard, straightforward for tactical DPS build. All right, for traits, I'm using quite a few off the exchange here. This has taken me some time to grind out and pick up, but they're definitely well worth having. We are using Adaptive Defense. This is giving us extra survivability when we're in combat. Adaptive Offense. This is giving us a boost of 9% of critical severity as it builds up over time. We're using Cannon Training. Since this is a cannon build, we are using Good Day to Die. This should be, if you're a tactical officer, your first trait that you're going after. That is not a stock one. What this does is it allows you to use the Go Down Fighting as a clickable without having the penalty of needing to be below 50% health. So I can click this anytime and it's going to give me a plus 50% bonus all damage. This is usable on any kind of build, but it is only available to tactical officers. But definitely should be your first one to go after. And again, that is Good Day to Die. And do be careful because there is a trait. I don't think you can buy it on the exchange, so it's probably not an issue. But there is a trait called Starship Trait called Good Day to Die that just came out. It has nothing to do with this, so it's not the one from the ship. Just so we're clear on that. Next, we have Fleet Coordinator. This is giving us plus 2% for every teammate, including yourself. So on a regular old TFO, you're getting an extra 10% bonus with a team of 5. We're using Innocuous for the extra critical severity, and very important on a build like this, the negative 25% threat generation. Any kind of threat reduction we can do will be great. As I finish out all of my reps, there's going to be some additional ones that we can use in here. The Decoy Satellite, and the other one, it's the Quantum something or rather, acts basically as a cloak. Those are very good for dropping threat, hiding from the enemy, even while you're still in combat. Next, again, this should be one of the next go-tos. It's the Intelligence Attaché, or Agent Attaché, and for every critical hit that you get, your captain's abilities recharge time are reduced by 2%. So that adds up, especially on a build like this where I'm getting a critical hit over 50% of the time, meaning Good Day to Die, and some of the other traits are going to come up much, much more often. Some of these have longer traits, so really this is mostly affecting Go Down Fighting, with Good Day to Die, obviously, working in conjunction with that, and then also Brace for Impact, and we'll touch on that when we get down to the Starship traits, but with the Starship trait, this is also acting as a clickable buff. And so this has a minute, and this has a minute as well. And so if I'm starting to get critical hits, 2% of time is dropping off of these, and these become available to use again very quickly. Okay, next we are running Operative for the extra critical chance, critical severity. Terran Targeting, this is here for the extra 15% critical severity. Excellent trait. Definitely would recommend probably trying to get a hold of this third. And then lastly, we're using Duelist Fervor, and this is giving us a plus 5% all damage for 10 seconds, plus 5 accuracy rating for 10 seconds. These effects can stack up to 3 times. So essentially once it's built up, and this is when you or a teammate kills an enemy. And so essentially what we're getting from this is an extra 15% damage. It's not bonus damage, so it's not, it's not make or break on the build. It's just a nice little extra there. So out of all of these, this one, and this one are stock. The rest are purchased off of the exchange or from the boxes. A little bit of money spent there. It took me some time to build that up, but if you're watching this video and you're wanting to build towards that damage, then you're going to need to be able to do that. You could still perform the ship well without some of these, but you're probably going to be looking at about half the amount of output, which still could be very, very high. A ship like this has a potential of doing upwards of 200K on an ISA run, given all the right circumstances. It's not going to do that every single time, but all right, let's move on to Starship Traits. So we have the Emergency Weapons Cycle. This is from the Arbiter. This is one of the go-to traits in my top 5 C-Store ships and traits that you should be looking at. And this is giving us a huge weapon power cost reduction and a plus 20% fire cycling for energy weapons, which energy weapons are cannons as well. Cannons are not projectiles. Cannons are energy weapons. I get that question quite a bit. Torpedoes are projectiles, but cannons are not. So this affects that, and basically they're firing 20% faster than they otherwise would. Second, another one on that list of go-to traits, and this is Strike from Shadows. This is here for the extra bonus damage and critical chance. Most importantly, though, this is here for the threat reduction of 60%, which is huge. This will keep you alive. And this is very, very good on a cannon scatter build because it depends on you damaging a foe that does not have you targeted. So if you're hitting 3 targets, especially when you first enter combat, most likely they are all 3 not going to have you targeted, and you're going to be able to get this buff right away, which lasts for 30 seconds and then continues to recharge as you continue to hit foes that do not have you targeted. Excellent, excellent trait. These 2 are go-tos. Any kind of energy weapons builds, you're definitely going to want this, and I use this on many of my builds all the way across the spectrum. Strike from Shadows. Okay, next we have Withering Barrage. This is a must-have for cannon scatter volley. So as I discussed in the past, you can have cooldowns for your bridge officer abilities, all those kinds of things, but you cannot cool down an ability more than 50%. Cannon scatter volley, just like beam overload, has a stock or base 30-second cooldown. So even with all the best reductions, and if you were running Ox to Bat and everything, the best you can get is going to be 15% or 15 seconds on the cooldown. This ability, and just like Beam Overload or Fire at Will, runs for 10 seconds. So we're missing that from happening for the 5 seconds. This fills in that gap and extends that ability out to 4 seconds. So while the cooldown hasn't changed, if you're maxing out the cooldown, and I'm not quite, I'm pretty close, I'm at about a 16-second cooldown. And then with this trait, that adds on to the 10 seconds, putting me at 14 seconds it's running. So when I'm running a TFO, I'm essentially being able to keep this up almost 100% of the time, less 2 seconds every 14 seconds while it's running. So excellent trait to have. This comes from a million different sources. So it comes originally from the Tier 6 Defiant from the C-Store. It's available in the Legendary pack. It's available on the Klingon and Romulan variant of the Defiant, whatever those are called, I can't remember. And then also, if you had rolled a KDF recruit that started a few months back, it's over now, but if you had rolled one, that ship that they give you, once you unlock a few things, it also gives you this trait. And so if you have, let's say you don't have any of those C-Store ships, you could, if you had a Klingon recruit and you had one leveled, or any Klingon recruit leveled up to level 60, and you had the Klingon recruit and its ship, then you could unlock this ship on a non-KDF tune, which is what I did here on this account, and that's how I obtained this trait. So let me say that again, because I think that came out all kinds of jumbled. If you have a KDF character in general and it's level 65, your entire account can fly any ship of any faction. Okay, so that's number one. If you had a KDF recruit, which was a special character that you could have picked up a few months back, it came with a bunch of goodies as you completed different tasks. One of those goodies was a ship, and that ship had this trait. So if you're on a free-to-play account and you have a KDF, or you say, like on this account, my first KDF was that recruit. So I got the ship on the recruit, and I had to level that recruit all the way up to 65, which then unlocked cross-faction, and I was able to claim it. So I hope that's not too confusing. If you have questions about that, just throw them down in the comments, and I'm sure we can answer that even more straightforward. Next, we are using improved unconventional tactics. This comes from completing the strategist specialization. So once you can fill all these in, you will get this trait. And what this does is it turns the brace for impact into basically a bonus damage clicky. So it's 20% bonus damage for 15 seconds, and the cooldown on that ability is a minute. And again, that can be reduced as you're getting critical hits with intelligence attaché. So you see how things, like we talked about in a previous video of synergizing, everything is helping everything else. And it's not just like this is helping that, right? It's this is helping that, is helping this, is helping that, is helping this, and it's this web. And that's really what you're wanting to build in any kind of thing that you put together, is not just this helps that, this helps this helps that, and it's all this different stuff. You want it all webbed together so everything is intertwined and in some way boosting and helping and picking up each and every other, different ability that you have. Lastly, this is really filler. This is the automated shield alignment, and this is giving me bonus damage as I lose shield face. This came from the Alliance Battle Cruiser, which was not this last anniversary event where we got the Tamir, but the year before that. You could put quite a few other things in here. Like on this, I have I have a tanking trait because it's a C-store unlock I got. I could run that, which is a history will remember. That would give me some more survivability. Just look for anything that's going to help boost it. I was playing around using the super weapon ingenuity. This is used for my beam overload since I have the Omni on the back, and it actually did pretty well, but this isn't a trait you're going to want to go after just to boost one Omni on the back of a scatter volley build. So just look through your traits. If you don't have this one, and this one did very well for me, especially because it's a little squishy ship, the shields get taken down quite a bit, and you get this bonus damage and a heal after it stacks a certain amount of times. So if you don't have this, just look through your traits, look for something else that's going to fill in that gap. Another go-to is the one that comes from the Intel specialization. You could throw that in there for the extra accuracy, which again on a scatter volley build would be helpful. So just look through your traits if you don't have that. If this was my paid account, there would be quite a few other ones, and I'm going to do another video, probably beam overload on my paid account, and we'll be using higher end traits and those kinds of things. But I really like making videos on my free to play. There's a lot of newer viewers that I have, and I just find that it's a lot more helpful when you're trying to make something out of just what you got, right? You don't have everything in the world. Most people don't. And to be honest, I enjoy playing this account almost more than my paid account that I spend a lot of money on, because it's satisfying trying to find combinations, from just whatever it is I have and making it work. And when you're successful at that, it feels pretty darn good. I mean, if you just buy every ship in the game and you can put all the meta stuff on, that's all great. And don't get me wrong, that's a lot of fun. It's not quite as satisfying as when you're working with all you got. It's your build, right? It's not copying someone else's and just filling in the blanks with whatever you were told. So in any case, don't let me get sidetracked again. Let's move on here. Space reputation. Again, this is all the pretty standard stuff. We are using precision for the critical severity, critical chance. We are using advanced targeting system for the critical severity, 16%. Tyler's duality. This scales critical chance with the hit points that you have. So the more hull you have, the more critical severity you're going to get out of this. With the 100 hull, or just over 100K hull I have, I'm getting 4.4% critical chance out of that, which is excellent. Lastly, we're using magnified firepower for the plus 5% bonus weapons damage. And then I have no space traits. Rep ones I do, but this is an AoE. This grabs aggro. We don't want that on this ship. Let's take a look at stations. So as always, our highest tactical is going to be whatever we can fit the highest main firing mode that this is built around. So this build is built around cannon scatter volley, so we are using that in the commander position. Next, I have beam overload because I do have an Omni in the back, so might as well take advantage. We need to fill slots in. I'm thinking, though, I'm going to change this for torpedo spread 3 because with Chemosite and torpedo spread 3, I'm going to hit even more targets and do a lot more damage, I think, with that combination than running it the other way. So I'm going to go torpedo spread 3 here and beam overload 2 here. But in any case, this is how it's set up. This is how it was set up on the run. Next, we have attack pattern beta, and this is for mainly the 30%, negative 30% damage resistance rating for 5 seconds to your enemies, which is very nice. Means your weapons do more damage than they otherwise normally would. Next, we're using Chemosite lace weaponry, and this is adding a radiation damage to your weapons. Torpedoes get it, I believe it's 100% of the time, and all your other weapons, cannons and beam weapons, are going to get a 10% chance of getting it. So that's why having that with that dark matter torpedo, and it does a damage over time, along with chemosight on a torp spread 3, hitting even more targets, I think, like I said, is going to be a lot more beneficial. We're having those two work together. Lastly, I have TAC Team. And do I even have this slotted? I don't think so. This can cause, I've been told this can cause misfiring. I feel like I've noticed that before. I just don't feel like it's real valuable, and I don't have anything else to put here, so I don't slot it. You can slot it. I'm not saying don't. Check it out, see how you feel about it. Or if you have something else you can put here, put it there and try it out. But I have this here because something had to be there, but it is not slotted anywhere here on my tray. Okay, engineering. We have, or let's start and go back up to the top. So we have hazard emitters. This is on my spam bar because this is giving us an additional, I think it's 3% critical chance anytime it clicks or I click it because of strategist. And we can demonstrate that here. So if we look, we're at 58.5%. So let's click that, and now we're at 62%. So that is a very nice little extra that is there. It also gives us a heal over time, which again on a ship like this is very nice. With Photonic Officer, we're able to get this cooldown, pretty darn low as well. So that damage buff is running quite a bit, that critical chance buff. That's why we have that there. Not to mention, again, the heal's nice. Photonic Officer, I have a whole video just on this for cooldowns. This is the go-to. If you don't have the duty officers for Ox to Bat, if you don't know what Ox to Bat is, Google it, check it out. I haven't done any videos on it yet, but to have an effective one, it's going to cost you, 60 to 100 million EC. I don't have that kind of money on this account, so I go Photonic Officer, and essentially what this does is this particular rank of it, which is the lowest rank, is going to give me 2% off of all my Bridge Officer ability cooldowns every second. So that adds up. It does only run for 20 seconds, and it has a 30-second cooldown, and you cannot increase or decrease, this cooldown on this ability at all. So it is what it is. You are not getting that extra cooldown on the rest of your abilities for that 10 seconds that this is not working. So it's advantageous to put the highest level you can get of it on there, but on this build and this particular layout, that was the highest that I could get. So that's why that is there. Engineering, we are using emergency powered engines. This is to proc the duty officer from the Phoenix pack. Again, this is pretty standard stuff on all my builds. And what it does is it basically recharges evasive maneuvers for me. So you'll see evasive maneuvers is going. We're flying really, really, really fast. And as soon as it's done, I can click emergency power to engines. And what it's going to do is reset this down to like 2 seconds. So let's click that. And we're at 3, 2, and 1, and we're ready to go fast again, which is nice, especially with having the deuterium surplus. So we have a lot of ability here to get the ship moving quickly. Next, I'm using Let It Go. This is primarily here for the debuff, mainly on bosses. It does do some cold damage, so 360 or 346 cold damage every second for 20 seconds. So you can get a little bit of damage out of it, but it doesn't rank real high on the parse. Main reason is, you put this on the attack cube or, any kind of large boss, and you're getting a negative 6.3 all damage resistance rating every second for 20 seconds, and it stacks up to 20 times. So if that thing lives for 20 seconds while you're attacking it, that 20-second mark, you have 120 negative damage resistance on that enemy. Very nice ability for the bosses. And lastly, for the last science slot, this is also an Intel slot. I am using Intel Team, and this is essentially to help me stay alive longer. I have it on my spam bar, so it's constantly running. It basically acts as a cloak. You could run 2 of these with fresh off of R&R, which shaves off 5 seconds of each, and basically rotate back and forth through these. You could run 2 even without it, because they do have a global cooldown, so you could keep them up fairly often, but having fresh off of R&R would definitely help with that more. I was thinking about switching out adaptive defense for it, and I'll just show you the trait. I'm not sure how much this is going for on the exchange. I grabbed it a while back. This isn't a huge sought-after meta trait, so it's probably fairly inexpensive, but Is this it here? Fresh off R&R. The first control effect applied to your ship automatically cleanses, and the ship grants 3 seconds of control immunity. That's not why it's there. It's there for bridge officer, our team bridge officer abilities. Minimum cooldowns are 5 seconds faster. That's why we're using it. For that statement right there, an intel team is a team bridge officer ability. So you could pick this up off the exchange and use 2 of those, which would essentially keep you cloaked almost 100% of the time while still being able to fire all of your weapons and do everything you normally would. Your shields are still up. I mean, you literally are just cloaked. You know, you have the benefit of cloak and none of the drawback. So I'll probably experiment with a run after that. I really considered running it like that for this video, but opted not to, not for any good reason that I can say. So what I did decide to go with is override subsystems, and what this does is plus 0 to 40% maximum in current all power levels. Effects last for 20 seconds, but diminish by 4 maximum but diminish by 4 max and current subsystem power every 2 seconds. Okay. I see. They make it, sometimes they're tongue twisters or they're puzzles. What are they saying in these tooltips? When power bonus ends, 1 random subsystem goes offline for 5 seconds. That can really be a doozy. It's definitely a nice boost that you get, and this console that comes with this, if you're timing it out, you use this, you wait for the effects of it to expire after the 20 seconds, then you click this button. This should repair that, so you don't have any issues with it and continue going. Or, like I said, you could switch that out for the other intel team. I opted to go the more damage-oriented route on that. And let's just see what goes off of line here. Okay, so it looks like auxiliary. I can't tell what's offline, and it dropped. I wasn't looking. In any case, according to the tooltip on that, that should do that. If this doesn't repair that, then let me know. I'm interested to understand whether or not that makes the difference. I would run this console regardless of whether it does or doesn't. Okay, and then obviously this last one I just skipped on engineering. I don't know what happened there, but this is emergency powered weapons, and this is giving us a plus 16% bonus energy weapon damage and a plus 40 weapons power settings for 30 seconds, which is huge. This ability has, I think it's a 45 second with running Photonic Officer. This ability ends up being up 100% of the time, even with Photonic Officer 1. All right, let's take a look at our duty officers here, and then we'll go ahead and hit the run and see how it does. Roster. Again, on this account, I don't have a lot, so some of this I'm just kind of filling in the gaps. So we have a 50% chance reduce remaining recharge time by 5 seconds. Chance to reduce time of any beam special attack ability. So this is completely useless on this build. Cannons and beams are both energy weapons, but cannons are not beams. So this guy really shouldn't be here. I'll have to look into replacing it with something else, and I have a feeling this one's going to be the same exact thing. Beam special attack, yep. So there's another one there, blowing it hardcore. Here is the duty officer from the Phoenix pack, and this is the guy you're going to want to grab to recharge your evasive maneuver with the use of emergency power to engines. Very, very good. Next we have, let's see, another energy weapons officer. So yeah, I have 3 duty officers on here that aren't doing anything for me. What would I use on this? Maybe technicians, or I don't know. I really don't know what I would use. I don't have a lot on here. On my paid account, I would have technicians for Oxed Bat, but I don't have that ability on this. So I'm not sure what I'd put there. So sorry to let you down there, guys, but you're still I think, going to be pretty surprised at how well that run with, even with having more than half of our duty officers not fitting this build. Let's take a look at the last one and see if we got a winner. Chance to reduce the time for all emergency power to subsystem abilities to recharge after use. 25% recharge time. So damage control. Let's read that again. Chance to reduce time Okay, so this is what we would do. If I had this to run all over again, I would replace at least 2 of these because you can only have 3 of one particular kind, right? So energy weapons officers. I have 3. I could not put a 4th of that on there. I'd put 3 of damage control, and what these do is they cool each other down. So essentially, if you had a bunch of these on here, you'd have a chance, say, for like emergency power to weapons, and then you use emergency power to engines. You see how that has a shared cooldown? Once that gets closer and I click this, that would drop this down more if it procced. And if I had 3 of these, you would have more of a chance of that proccing, right? So I'd have 3 times 25% to reduce by 30%. So that would be... that would probably be the way to go there. Emergency power to weapon, or emergency power to subsystem ability, cooldown reduction with a damage control engineer. All right, well, that was a fail hardcore, but again, hey, that's just how it goes. And again, like I said, the run went pretty darn good, so I'm not going to complain. Lastly, let's take a look at where we're at on the endeavors. On the free-to-play account here, I am only at 162. It certainly does add up over time. Definitely grind these out. I've gotten pretty lazy. I just kind of grab the ones that I want to. Borg, ground, nope, not doing it. I'm not saying it's not worth doing it. I'm over it. So I'll take them as I can get them. If you're new and you're pumped, focus on those. It makes a big difference. Before they raised the cap, I had pretty close to max, because the cap used to be like right here or so. And I had pretty close to maxed out the ones that I really cared about, you know. So I got some more grinding to do to get the rest of them. But like I said, you know, I'm kind of over the min-maxing. I just want to have fun. So as I get those, but again, if you're new and you're hot to trot on it, there ain't nothing wrong with it. Get these maxed out. It'll help you out big time. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this run, guys, and see how this bad boy performs. All right, there it is. Not bad at all. 185K for a free-to-play account. 0 money spent. A 1-year-old tune. That's pretty darn good. This tune has done just over 200K 3 times. Beam overload build, I think I can get this build there as well, especially using maybe the DPRM, although the DPRM, I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent, but it's an excellent console. I'm not arguing that, but it's just not a deal breaker, you know, for doing good DPS. I know guys that, you know, do, you know, in elite runs way up there, 500, 600, 700 without a DPRM on their build. Anyways, don't get me sidetracked again with that. There's a lot of that happening tonight. I just want to go off on tangents, but let's take a look at the breakdown on the build and see how this stuff did here. And this was just a pug run. I don't know any of these people. We just went in, clicked on ISA, and that's who I got slotted with. So there wasn't any dedicated tanks or anything like that. This is just a random. All right, so we did, let's see, that's not me. All right, here we are. Okay, let's start at the top. So we did 185,000 DPS, damage per second. The run was actually pretty quick. It was under 2 minutes, so that's not bad. Max 1 hit, nothing super special, 107K. You'll see guys with different abilities doing, you know, 2 million, a million, no problem. So this build just grinded through it and kept up a steady, constant damage output, you know, is what this is showing us here. Debuff rate, my debuff rate's always low, and I don't know what the deal is, even on my paid account. I mean, every now and then I'll have a run where I'm getting over 200, but I see guys consistently doing upper 100s and in the 200s, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Attacks in, we had 1,270, so not bad at all. Hit rate, so we actually didn't have any misses, so that little bit of extra accuracy here and there really added up. Our critical chance rate was pretty darn good at 75%. But again, I mean, you know, with everything all stacked up on here, I mean, we're running in the mid 60s at critical chance. So, I mean, that's not surprising that that overall rate ended up on average being that high. We had flanking rate of 37%. We had 20 kills. And our hit buy rate was 92, so we were hit by 92% of the bad guys on there. We didn't die at all. So not bad. Let's take a look at some of the individual weapons. So the top, well, and this isn't top. I have 2 of these weapons here. So these are the Crescent Wave Alachi weapons. So they did basically 21K each. There's 2 of them. Next up was the Terran Task Force, did almost 30K by itself. Very, very good. Soliton Wave Impeller. This thing is bad to the bone. Again, if you don't have it, I don't have a good answer for you on what else to use. There's other stuff out there, but you know, the only other things that it's like, okay, if you don't have this, the next best one is from a Lobby ship, Voice of the Prophets. As for, you know, ones that you can get from what come on the ship, it's okay. It does electrical damage. There's one, I think it's like an artillery something. It's in the rep system, and it's probably better than what would come on this ship. So I'd probably go for that if you didn't have anything else and aren't wanting to spend any money. But that's just an excellent, excellent weapon. In 4th place at 20K, we had the the Quad Disruptor cannons, which again is a ship that you can pick up for Dill from the vendor. And you can get that from any of the I mean, it's all cross-faction now, so it doesn't matter. But even before that, you could still obtain a version of the ship that had it. Next, we had the Dark Matter torpedo. And this one did pretty decent damage. The secondary effects, like Chemosite at 8K, that wouldn't do. I wouldn't have done 8K with that without this torpedo. So bear that in mind. This number in some runs can be, you know, 20, like on my paid account, it can be 20, 30 with this torpedo, especially on like the torpedo builds and stuff. So Chemosite can do very well, but it's got to be used in a specific way with specific items. And so the Dark Matter torpedo along with Chemosite is very good together. House Martog Disruptor beam in the back did okay. We did about 7K damage on that. And that was under beam overload 3, and then under just a regular firing mode here, we did 6, almost 7. So we did about 14K with that weapon between the 2 firing modes. So again, not bad at all. Dark Matter Dissolution. This is the effect that you get from the Dark Matter torpedo, damage over time. So we did like 3K, which isn't bad. And then again, we have a repeat of most of the other weapons that we used, but under just a regular non-firing mode. We had a concentrated firepower. Probably picked that up from somebody else that was in the run with us, since obviously we didn't have that slotted. And then as you can see, like we were discussing, or I mentioned earlier, Let It Go 2 doesn't do much damage in the way of that cold damage it does over time, but it does a good job with the debuff on the resistance. All right, well, that is the results. Again, very, very happy with that. That's good, and I think I can improve upon that. I mean, again, if you look at the weapons and things we're using, I don't have any of my weapons epicked out. Some of these consoles are because I use them on all my builds basically. So you'll find, you know, when you're starting the game, you're getting a little through, you know, into it, or you're wanting to really kind of build up, you know, your damage output and what you're doing, focus on some core items that are going to be useful across many different builds, right? You get a lot more bang for buck out of that. You know, the traits really can make or break a build, especially, you know, these first three make a big difference. If I take these three off, this build is probably going to do about half of that, maybe. But that's the bottom line. I mean, if you don't want to spend money on the game, you can still have fun. If you're, you know, willing to put in the time or be patient, you can still get all of this stuff. Like I said, I've spent $0 on this entire account. So, you know, you can still get this stuff, but you're not going to start the game and in 3 months be doing over 100K plus without spending any money. It's just not going to happen. So it's important to understand that. That's just the way it is. If you're just having fun in the game, play the events. You'll pick up things like ship tokens and lobby and stuff like that, and you'll be able to get these items and be able to put together a pretty damn good build across the board there. Yeah, so this ship's great. That's awesome that they gave it away. That's really nice. I find that they do that with most of the expansions. You just got to be looking for it. I made that video. I just kind of thought, yeah, it's kind of low-hanging fruit, but I've never seen anybody say, hey guys, you know, go get this. It's free. You know, I'll hear it through the grapevine and Discord and here and there. So, you know, I do hope that video did very, very well, and I appreciate that from you guys, and I hope it was helpful. It sounds like a lot of, you know, people weren't aware that these giveaways were happening, and they're just free. You know, you just go get a code. So, and I find they do those about once a year. So check in, especially like Steel Series and also the Alienware Gaming. I see quite a bit of stuff in there. I play Warships, and they have quite a bit of, you know, codes, and they'll do giveaways for different games like that. But in the future, I don't know if I'll make videos for every single one, but we definitely put that stuff and share it in the Discord and that kind of thing. So definitely go check out the Discord. There'll be a link below. I am running a couple giveaways in the Discord right now for lockbox keys. So I'm giving away 3 keychains of 5 each. So you can enter in both of those. Each winner will get 5 lockbox keys, and there'll be a total of 3 winners. So go check out the Discord, join that. It's a great community in there. Also, if you have not already, consider subbing to the channel. Hit that button, ring the bell, get the notification so you know when I'm uploading new videos and things are going live, and get some more of that good info. At least I hope it's good, and I hope you guys like it. So, all right, guys, it's getting late for me, and I will keep rambling. Have a good night. Thank you again very much, guys, for all the support, and until next time, stay safe.